All right, we're not going to take a break. We're going to go straight into our news bulletin. Hopefully, we'll be able to chat to Khaya in the bulletin as we begin just a minute or so early. Parliament's Financial Watchdog Committee, SCOPA, has confirmed that President Cyril Ramaphosa has ordered that embattled South African Airways be placed under business rescue. The move was detailed in a letter by Cabinet Secretary Cassius Lubisi last night. On Sunday, Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan said SAA would undergo a radical restructure. In a statement issued last night, Gordhan said SAA's board had adopted a resolution to place the company into business rescue and that the move was fully supported by government. Gordhan says business rescue is the optimal mechanism to restore confidence in SAA and to safeguard its assets. SAA has not made a profit since 2011 and is dependent on government bailouts to remain solvent. In a business rescue process, a specialist administrator takes control of a company with the aim of rehabilitating it to improve its chances of surviving or to secure a better return for creditors than they would get from a liquidation. Right, let's take this conversation about SAA forward. We're joined on the line by chartered accountant and political commentator Khaya Sithole. Khaya, good morning to you. Great to have you on the line.
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers.
So, Khaya, help us out here. Business rescue. A lot of people asking, what exactly does that mean? What is the difference between business rescue and liquidation?
So a liquidation, quite simply, is the immediate shutting down of a company. And the reason we literally call it a liquidation is that what you try to do is identify whatever assets still exist within the business and you convert them to cash immediately. And cash is referred to as a liquid asset because it's the one that's easiest to exchange hands. So the concept of a liquidation is quite simply taking whatever exists at this stage, selling it off and getting the right price, and then simply saying we have ceased to exist. So that is what a liquidation is. A rescue process, on the other hand, seeks to ask the question of, can we perhaps engage someone else to come into the business and try and rescue what exists of it? Now, of course, when a new person comes in and replaces the incumbent management, this person will also have three outcomes at the end of it. The first outcome would be the answer that says, well, actually, there's nothing left to save, so therefore let us shut it down, which is similar to a liquidation exercise. A second option would be to say, look, actually, the reason we are in this position is because of X, Y, and Z. I can fix that, so therefore let us do this, and then we're good to go. The third option would be for him to say, well, actually, this company can be rescued if you do the following. Give it those resources, and then I'll hand back the company to you in a better shape, in a shape that is functional. So those are the three possibilities. And of course, one is hoping that what emerges out of this is a company that can be viable on a standalone basis. The problem is that nobody knows the true state of the company. They have not produced financial statements. We don't know what their debt exposures are. So it's difficult to predict what the outcome will be after the business rescue process.
I mean, when you go under business rescue, you know, we saw quite a detailed statement coming out from government this morning, basically saying that the board and government have decided that this is the best route to go, that in fact what they're going to do is even though SAA is very reliant on bailouts from government, they are going to give an additional 2 billion rand to SAA, a fiscally neutral manner to help the airline operational. This is not a bailout, this is just to help with the rescue business process that will begin today. When you are under business rescue, I mean, is it a point where somebody is brought in, you could see retrenchments taking place, you could see lots of hard decisions being taken on behalf of the airline?
So the primary distinction between what usually used to happen when the state simply handed over money to SAA is that in this particular instance, it's really come down to the question of if somebody has to come in and start restructuring the company. We already know that they were struggling to pay salaries. There's obviously amounts that are immediately due. So you do not want to paralyze that person's efforts by not giving them anything to start off with. So that's what really justifies the injection of this 2 billion rand, just to get them in a position to actually deal with the immediate payments that are due and then move them forward. So that's what justifies this injection of 2 billion rand here. Now, the question of whether retrenchments are going to happen, the reality here is that there has been an acknowledgement by the state and even by the current board of directors that the current business model is simply no longer functional. Now, when a person comes in and has to undertake a business rescue process, this person really has to look forward and say, well, at the end of it, does anyone still want to use this particular service, which would be the service that SAA provides? And if they do want to use it, what resources do I have to provide it? So the question of, do I have the flights? Do I have the landing rights? And once that questions have been answered, then the secondary question is, how many people do I need on staff in order to execute on what I think needs to be done? So it becomes really a back and forth exercise of saying what business can survive and how many people do I need. Now that person will come out and say, I need 10,000 people. And if it turns out that when you walked in there were 15,000 people, well, unfortunately, those additional 5,000 people will by default lose their jobs. So unfortunately, that's really how the business rescue process works. Somebody walks in, asks a few questions, and then says, as part of the questions that I've asked, this is the answer, these are the people that I need, and everyone else is now surplus to requirements.
So just to understand that, because in the statement that was released, the quite telling statement basically saying that the business practitioner is the be-all and end-all. What they say goes. This includes not having any interference from government at all. This should be interesting to see if government really does have this very much a hands-off approach and says, look, whatever the business rescue practitioner says, we do. Does the board have any say?
No, the board itself becomes completely redundant at this stage because, remember, the board was the one that had the fiduciary responsibility over this entity. Them putting it under business rescue is them actually raising the red flag. And in order to enable the business rescue practitioner to actually do his job unhindered by the legacy attachments that people might have to particular deals or particular persuasions, he has to have unlimited reign in actually doing things as he sees fit. Now, whether he then identifies particular board members that he can then lean on in an advisory capacity, that's entirely up to him or her. So at this stage, the board really becomes completely redundant in the process. They have simply acknowledged that they're incapable of running the affairs of this entity. So we're hoping that they really do take a step back and allow somebody new to actually run the affairs of the company in a way that really gets something out of it.
You know, Khaya, the reality of the situation is that SAA is in the business of travel. It's in the business of getting a passenger from point A to point B. And we saw last week just one of them, to name it, Flight Centre South Africa, saying that they are not going to be booking on SAA. And I think a lot of people feel that way as well. Those that have booked are very nervous whether or not those flights are actually going to take off. And future travellers saying, I'm definitely not going to even think about booking on SAA because who knows where we will be and if we're going to get to the destination. Even though you put a business under business rescue, but you don't have the travellers on board and the people booking your tickets, where does that leave you? How do you turn a business around when you don't even have support?
It is the most difficult business to turn around because, of course, this is a business that requires on the benevolence of travellers like you and myself to say, well, actually, we're going to give you a chance and gamble that if I book a flight for 4 or 5 months in advance, if I book a flight for my Easter holidays, I think that you'll be around, so therefore I'm going to book with you. Now, of course, that benevolence is not guaranteed. So some of us might say, yes, we'll do it, and most people might say, actually, we're not going to do it. This is different to a traditional business that has what you call captured stakeholders, where there are people that say, well, we definitely need your service, so therefore we'll take it for as long as you give us some guarantee that you're going to try and provide it. In this particular instance, it's literally SAA hoping that some travelers are going to look beyond the current chaos and say, I still think that there'll be something in 4 or 5 months' time, so therefore let me make a booking and then I'm actually going to travel. The problem, unfortunately, is that even in instances where you do take that gamble and it doesn't materialize, you would have insurance that covers you and says, well, actually, when you bought this ticket, we predicted that there might be a possibility that it might not fly. We insured you, so therefore we're putting you on a separate flight. Unfortunately, that insurance cover has now been lost, as you saw last week, that a couple of entities said we're actually not going to cover any of the passengers that book SAA flights. So now the risk profile of SAA or booking on SAA is escalated to such a level, it would be amazing if anyone books a long-term flight on SAA at this particular stage. Now, unfortunately, what that means is that the business rescue practitioner is already starting on the back foot where he can say, these are the costs I'm trying to manage, but unfortunately, the revenues are also going to plummet, not because of anything that he does or she does, but simply because of the state of how we ended up here. Very few people are going to lend any support in the form of buying tickets. And until that happens, until people have that confidence, it's really a big mission.
Thank you, Khaya. Thanks so much for talking to us here on the program, just giving us a little bit more into what it means for business rescue and for the airline as well. Always a joy speaking to you. Thanks so much.